are here at the Eugene District Headquarters for the Bureau of Land Management, Monday, November 2nd. This is just following Halloween weekend. On Halloween Day, Saturday, October 31st, over 100 people braved extremely rainy weather to hold a mock trial in downtown Eugene at the old U.S. courthouse, a mock trial about the Bureau of Land Management, a mock trial that found, with overwhelming evidence, that they should probably change their name to the Bureau of Land Mismanagement. At least that was the opinion of the character who played Mother Earth. The title of the trial, mock trial, was The Case of Mother Earth versus the BLM. We had folks dressed up as various forest creatures. There was a bear, there was a frog, there were even nature fairies. And the overwhelming evidence was that pesticides, not a good thing in the forest. Not good for frogs who are actually having their genitalia altered, where male frogs are becoming female frogs because of atrazine. Not good for the bears who find it difficult to access honey because the bees are dying from the pesticides. Not good for the human beings who are being exposed to aerial sprayed pesticides. So, at the end of the mock trial, we did have, in the interest of fairness, we had a mock spokesperson for the Bureau of Land Management. Someone in a business suit who was attached to puppet strings. Yes, behind the spokesman for the Bureau of Land Management at the mock trial was a person on a ladder pulling marionette puppet strings. That person, the puppet master, was labeled Big Pesticide. The point being that what the Bureau of Land Management face in the business suit says to us about this plan is really being dictated from higher on up the ladder. Big pesticide. We're talking Monsanto. We're talking Dow Chemical. We're talking DuPont. And really what we're talking about is the entire Invasive Species Council, which was established by presidential executive order just before Bill Clinton left office. The person who brokered the deal between Monsanto and the Clinton administration to create the National Invasive Species Council was none other than the Secretary of Commerce at the time, Mickey Cantor. Coincidentally, or not, immediately after brokering that deal, where Monsanto got to write the text for this presidential executive order establishing the National Invasive Species Council, well, amazingly, immediately after Clinton leaves office, Mickey Cantor, who brokered that deal for Monsanto, is placed on the board of directors of Monsanto. Information like this was at the crux of Saturday, October 31st, mock trial in the case of Mother Earth versus the BLM. We here today, now, a couple days after the trial, we've come to the very headquarters of the Bureau of Land Management in our section of Oregon. We intend to enter the building to provide a letter to the Bureau of Land Management that is labeled Notice of Verdict. A notice that 100 people who braved the rains to attend the mock trial have found them guilty of land mismanagement, have found them guilty of peddling a pesticide industry plan, pretending that it's being developed by the Bureau of Land Management, when the whole thing has its origins in the headquarters of Monsanto. We're here today to meet with District Head Jenny Gilley. We're going to give her a gift. When it came down to, okay, what's the penalty? You know, trials do tend to have penalties. We decided the penalty is simply to ask them to read this book. We want their scientists developing their invasive species strategies to read Invasion Biology, Critique of a Pseudoscience by David Theodropoulos, for the simple reason that that's exactly what this is. Invasion biology is nothing but a pseudoscience. It was created by Monsanto propagandists to create fear in the environment. The forest is a very scary place. Dangerous weeds are invading. We must come in with military helicopters and poison the forest to stop this invasion. Actually, pardon my English, it turns out to be a bunch of bullshit, and that's why we're here today, my friends.
I need to run off.
This is Jenny.
Hello.
Those that haven't met Jenny, and you are the district, administrator for the Bureau of Land Management. Okay. We have a letter. Have you got the letter for us?
Oh, thank you, Emily.
Emily, okay. In this letter, we point out that on Saturday, over 100 people braved extremely rainy weather to attend a mock trial of the Bureau of Land Management. The case, it was humorous, not mean or anything like that. It was called Mother Earth versus the BLM. And the Bureau of Land Management was found to be guilty of land mismanagement in the past and be making a dangerous step towards increased land mismanagement with the new herbicide plan being pushed. What we're of the opinion and want you guys to be willing to scientifically, analytically, and simply fairly to examine is the possibility that this entire plan has its origins, as we feel we can document, in something called the National Invasive Species Council that was cooked up by Monsanto just before President Clinton left office. He did an executive order bypassing Congress, no discussion or anything, establishing the National Invasive Species Council. But his statement that he made at the time is known to have been written by a Monsanto lobbyist, and the person in the administration at that time, Mickey Cantor, who was the Secretary of Commerce, he brokered that deal between Monsanto and Bill Clinton to do the executive order and to establish the National Invasives Council. As soon as they left office, he went onto the board of directors of Monsanto. And so we can document how the plan Oregon is now considering has its origins in the Invasive Species Council. And we would like you to have your scientists who are working on this draft environmental impact statement read this book, and we'll provide more copies of it if we get told that you guys are taking it seriously enough that you're willing to pass one to each of the scientists working on the environmental statement so that they can be exposed to this viewpoint. But the title of the book is Invasion Biology, Critique of a Pseudoscience, and it documents how the whole thing about the war on invasive species was created by the Monsanto Corporation in order to sell more pesticides. My family's had 3 members actually rushed for medical attention after aerial sprays. Some of our neighbors, including Maya, have suffered for many months. It took my wife, Neela, to recover. It took Maya a year to recover. We're surrounded by 50% forest that is private owned by the timber companies, and they just spray the heck out of those trees. But the other half of the forest is managed by the Bureau of Land Management. You guys own about every other checker on that checkerboard, they call it.
Right.
And so if you guys now increase your use of pesticides, it really impacts our families, and we really don't want it to happen. And we really hope that you'll expose your scientists to this book. And I understand you're closing on a house sale in a few minutes.
Right, I have to go.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
Well, can you give us at least a word of commitment that you'll read this letter that we're giving you all the way through from beginning to end when you get time?
I will, I'll do that, and I thank you for your interest. I know we've talked about this before, and I appreciate your passion over public land management. Now, as we talked about earlier today, this is a draft EIS, and we're accepting public comment, so use that process to express yourself through the public comment process. And then before we can use herbicides on BLM lands in Lane County, we need to do a step-down analysis. We can't use this big global thing and then have it be final and go out and start spraying invasives. This also, as you well know, is not about treating invasives for the purposes of forest management. So we're not going to go back and start spraying clear cuts, for example. We're never going to do that. This won't allow us to do it. So just want to make sure you have that information, and there will be another opportunity for you to engage with us if that's what you want to do before we start using herbicides on BLM lands in Lane County.
Well, Jenny, we thank you for your time, and I've always found you to be a friendly person to deal with, and so I hope you really will, send us a chain.
For me, so I'll certainly pass it on.
Yeah, it is, and if you have scientists willing to read it, we'll obtain and provide more copies. We bought one box of the book already and have more copies. We do, at the beginning of the letter, I just want to call your attention, we ask you to send a copy of this letter to the Portland office that's working on the DEIS, and to whoever the national head of the Bureau of Land Management is.
We have one now, Bob
Yeah.
Abbey. So, yes.
Who is it?
Bob Abbey.
Bob Abbey,
Yep.
okay. And then thirdly, to Ken Salazar, Director of the Department of Interior, since the BLM is within the Department of Interior, we'd like those people to know what's going on here, because the last thing I'll leave and then let you run off is that what we're asking you to do in the last paragraph here is, in the summary for the DEIS, it states that the only way, alternative one, no herbicides of the 5 alternatives, the only way that one could conceivably be selected is if there are, and then it says, quote, political or social reasons that it's conceivable alternative one could be selected, at least, it says, at least in certain regions. What we'd like you to do, Jenny, is, in a sense, be willing to become our advocate for that, and to simply honestly and accurately report that in your district, you had over 100 folks in pouring rain hold a mock trial of BLM about this DEIS and oppose it, and that therefore, what we're asking you to tell these higher-ups is that that criteria of political and social reasons that alternative one might be selected exist within this district. It already exists by the fact that you have publics holding mock trials of the BLM on the street and hundreds of people involved.
Right.
Okay.
Well, I'd certainly be willing to go ahead and pass this up the chain, and I'll make sure that, of course, Ed Shepard will get it, and we'll see if he wants to send it up to Bob Abbey and Secretary Salazar.
I thank you.
Okay? Hey,
Yeah.
thanks so much. It was good to see you.
Okay, good to see you again.
Thanks, Emily, for being here. Sorry I was late. Yeah, gotta go.
All right,
See ya.
thank
Thank
you.
you.
And-
Hey, have a good day.
And just out of curiosity, since I was told that you were filming us a bit, I want to know who you're with. Are you with the BLM or some other agency?
I'm not filming you.
Well, we
But
saw the camera.
we saw the camera
In
and you
case there
saw...
was an incident, you guys behaved perfectly.
I know, I'm just curious as to which agency you are.
I'm just a concerned citizen.
A concerned citizen. Well, could you work for Monsanto?
No.
Don't work for Monsanto? Okay. We read an article about how Monsanto actually, it was in an issue of Mother Jones magazine. Monsanto hires ex-Secret Service agents to investigate any anti-pesticide organization that mentions Monsanto in any way. They get investigated by ex-Secret Service people who are being paid way more money by Monsanto than they ever got working for the U.S. government. So I just wondered if you might be one of them guys?
I can assure you I'm not.
Okay, well, thank you.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Bye now.
Have a nice day.
Okay.
Thanks for your concern.
Thank you, everybody.
Well,
Bye.